The 2023 Boston Marathon is less than 2 weeks away, and I feel honored to be coaching a great group of athletes who are going to be running this race. I ran Boston last year after a multi-year journey trying to qualify for the race, actually having to do it several times due to COVID before I actually got to run the thing, and then had, without a doubt, the best marathon performance and the best marathon experience of my life there last April. On today's episode of the Knighton Runs Podcast, I'm going to give a visualization of what this course is like and what you can expect from before the race to the finish. Whether you're racing this April or just dreaming of it someday, I think this episode is going to give you a taste of what it's really like to do the race. Today's episode is brought to you by the Knighton Runs training group on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and download training plans that are based upon all the philosophies that I talk about here on the show and within my book, Run Faster Marathons, just go to patreon.com/KnightonRuns and you can access those training plans right away. All right, so first off, congratulations on getting to Boston. This is without a doubt the best marathon in the world. I say this as a lifelong Massachusetts resident up until these past few years where I moved to Rhode Island. And I know this course really, really well. I grew up watching the Boston Marathon. I always dreamed of doing it someday. And I finally got to run it when I was 33 in the year 2023. This is where my current PR is. It's the best marathon I've ever run, funnest marathon I've ever run, and it made me love the marathon event again, personally. The course is awesome. I can only think of one other course that might rival Boston in how cool it is, how challenging it is, and that maybe is New York. But New York is a fall race. We're talking about the spring today. Boston Marathon, it's on the mind. It's a net downhill course. It's actually not record eligible on a pro level for things like American records, world records, even though it's not the fastest course in the world. That would belong to something like London or Berlin. Boston has the ability to be very, very fast, and a lot of athletes run their PRs here on this course. The crowd support on the Boston Marathon is also unlike any other. There's going to be people lining the streets the entire way. It's also a huge race. No matter what your ability level is, whether you're in the front of the pack, the middle, or towards the back, there's going to be people just like you who you're running alongside the entire way. And that makes this race really, really cool. Not many other marathons are like this. Most other marathons, there's going to be lonely sections in the middle, towards the end. You might even be by yourself, no crowd support, no one to run with, depending on what your pace is. That will not happen in the Boston Marathon. You are going to be body to body, almost certainly with other runners, nearly the entire way. Boston's a point-to-point course, and that makes it really fun. It also makes it logistically a little bit more challenging. You have to figure out how you're going to get to the starting line. There are buses that will take you from downtown, and you can learn about those on the race's website. If you can, I would suggest getting a ride from a friend or a relative to the starting point. This is what I did. My wife dropped me off, and it just made the day much easier for me than having to board a bus early in the morning. Then my wife was able to actually meet me at a couple of points along the course because she was beginning kind of near the start and then making her way towards the finish. So I think she met me around the halfway point, and then she also met me at the finish. When you get to the start, you're going to go to the Marathon Village. It's kind of set up like a outdoor rock concert. There's going to be a lot of people, tents you can be underneath. There's going to be an announcer saying what's going on. There's plenty of bathrooms, porta potties to use. You'll be fine. People kind of stress out about what it's like. I think you'll be fine. There are tons of receptacles where they collect discarded items, and many of them, I believe, get donated. So if it's cool that day, definitely bring long sleeves and maybe a jacket or even just like a plastic trash bag to cover yourself with to keep you warm and dry before the race starts. There's plenty of opportunities up until the very start of the race, even when you're walking to the starting line, where you can discard these things in receptacles. So bring what you need to stay warm. You should also keep your race shoes on the entire time. Don't plan on bringing a separate set of racing shoes versus trainers that you're going to change into at some point, unless you're going to discard them, because there's not really a great opportunity to warm up before the race, but I'll get to that. And I don't think you really need to deal with switching shoes. Just wear what you're going to race in. If it is going to be a rainy morning, just make sure you bring things to stay dry. In this case, maybe you would want to bring some extra shoes that you could wear until the last minute, and then discard your potentially wet shoes, maybe some old trainers you don't use, and put on your racing shoes before the race starts. You might want to bring something that you can sit on, because you may have to sit on grass during the Athletes Village kind of staging area. So maybe a plastic trash bag or a small tarp or something like that would be fine. And definitely bring a snack. You're going to want to eat something before the race begins. I recommend for any marathon taking a gel, let's say 5 to 15 minutes before the marathon begins. That way you're topped up on your energy, your glycogen before the marathon starts, but you're also maybe going to want to bring something like a granola bar or something a little heartier that you're used to before the race begins. When it's time to line up, they're going to have you walk to the start. I forget the exact distance. It may be about a half a mile walk or something like that, maybe even slightly more from the Athletes Village to the starting line. This is kind of your warm-up. Really, I don't think most people need to do any running to warm up for a marathon. Sometimes pros don't even warm up before a marathon. You can treat the first few miles of the race as your warm-up, and that'll be fine. And we'll get into how you do that in a little bit. So you'll stretch your legs a little bit on the walk to the start. When you get to the starting line, you're going to have to go into your corrals. You historically haven't been able to move up any further in your corrals than you were assigned based on your seed time, but you may be able to move back. So for example, if you want to run with a friend who perhaps had a slightly slower qualifying time than you or a much slower qualifying time than you historically have been able to move back and start with them if you're the faster athlete moving backwards. But you can't move forward, so your friend who may have a slower qualifying time can't move forward into your space. Once the race starts, I was amazed at how crowded the race was for probably the first 4 or 5 miles. You start in Hopkinton, which is kind of a fairly rural suburb, woodsy. You're basically on a 2-lane road, and there's not much of a shoulder. The course is pretty tight here. It's the tightest part of the course. Later on, it will widen out, but I was literally body to body with other athletes, running like you would see riders in a professional bike race in a peloton. It was just a mass of people all running in the first 4 or 5 miles. And even though I started in the appropriate seating area for me, everyone else was going about the same speed. And I actually couldn't get up to the race pace that I wanted for probably a good 4 or 5 miles, just because of how crowded the race was. It was very hard to pass. There was a lot of maneuvering around to try to get around people at this stage. But that's okay. The beginning of the Boston Marathon, the first 4 to 5 miles are very downhill, actually. So if you are starting at or slightly slower than your goal race pace, you're actually conserving a ton of energy because you're actually going downhill, and you're saving your legs for the more challenging hills, the downhills that are going to come in the final 5 miles of the race. So treat the first 4 miles of the Boston Marathon as your warm-up. Once you start to enter Framingham, the course flattens out a little bit, and the roads widen a little bit there as well. You're going to want to get to this point around mile 5 feeling warmed up at this point, and now you're ready to kind of lock into your race pace. Hopefully at this point, the course is spreading out a bit. You have a bit more room to maneuver and go your own pace, and you can just lock into a steady pace at your goal race pace from mile 5, let's say through 10, and that's going to get you to the next town of Natick. As you move through Natick, there's a little bit of rolling hills kind of all throughout this course, but nothing really too bad. Nothing I think you really need to plan around. But then when you get to mile 15, you encounter one of the steepest hills of the race. It's actually a downhill. And this goes into the town of Newton. And I think it's called Newton Lower Falls here, I think. And you're going to know it. It's at mile 15. You're going to crest this hill, and you're going to go down the steepest downhill of the course and the longest downhill of the course. This is a segment where you really want to conserve your energy. You want to go down this hill as carefully and as slowly as possible because it's the start of the famous Newton Hills, and the hardest part of the race is now to come from mile 15 to the finish. This is one of the unique things about the Boston Marathon is it starts off very easy. It's downhill for the first 4 miles, and then it's going to level out for about 11 miles from Ashland to Newton. And then it's going to get hard in Newton. So when you get down this hill on kind of it's sort of the Wellesley-Newton border, very steep downhill. You want to take it very easy. You should know that this is coming. Then you're going to go through a little city center area and start to climb over the highway, I-95. This is at mile 16, and this is really the beginning of the Newton Hills. So the Newton Hills run from mile 16 to 24 of the course, and it's definitely the hardest part of the course. This is one of the things that makes Boston such a challenging course, is that the hardest part of the course comes in the final third of the course. So you really need to conserve your energy all through the beginning of this course until you get to the Newton Hills. Once you get to the Newton Hills, don't worry about them, actually. They're really not that hard. They're not that big. Even Heartbreak Hill and coming down Heartbreak Hill, it's not that bad. If you've been training on hilly routes at all, you're going to be well prepared for these. It's more just the stage of the marathon that they come in, being in the final third of the marathon, that makes them so challenging. You can expect your pace to drop a little bit as you go through them, but I wouldn't suggest trying to run to pace as you go through these hills. Instead, just try to maintain a pretty even effort. The mantra that I like to teach and I use myself when I'm running over hilly courses and trying to go fast is envision yourself floating up every uphill you go up. Don't fight to get to the top. Relax a little bit, and if you just ease off about 5%, you're going to save way more than 5% of your energy as you work your way to the top. And you really won't lose that much speed in the process. You don't want to fight up the hill. It's going to be a bad use of energy, and you won't be that much faster. Once you get to the top, just keep pushing through at that same effort, and then relax as you go down the backside, and try to get into a good rhythm, good cadence, depending on how steep the hill is. But just know that you're going to benefit from free speed as you come back down the other side. You're going to speed up as you go downhill. And you really don't need to push super hard to do that. Save your energy for the flat parts of this course. That's where you want to push, if anything. You don't really want to be fighting to get up and over the hills. Just kind of relax as you go through them, but stay steady. Maintain a good effort, because you're gonna need to as you get through them. One of the nice things about the Newton Hills is there's so much fan support as you go through them. Everyone knows it's the hardest part of the course, and there's going to be people, literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people cheering you along as you go up and over every one of these hills. With every marathon, I think it's really, really important to get to mile 20 feeling ready to compete and ready to race. The marathon doesn't really start until mile 20. I mean, you can think of a marathon as essentially a 20-mile fun run, easy, comfortable, followed by a really, really hard 10K. And Boston is no different. Make it your goal as you pace the entire first 20 miles of the race to get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, which is located just shy of mile 21. Get to the top of Heartbreak Hill feeling good, strong physically, strong energetically, and ready to run your fastest and your best in the final 5 miles of the race. The final 5 miles of Boston after you come off of Heartbreak Hill are super downhill and super fast. Often in the pro races, they're decided here at Heartbreak Hill. One of the professional runners will make a move as they go up or down Heartbreak Hill and break away from the rest of the pack and finish the race based on what they did in this section. As you pass mile 20 and start to climb Heartbreak Hill, you want to feel strong at this point. You don't want to feel broken. If you do, it's going to be a really, really hard final 5 miles. You know how hard downhill running can be if you're not feeling strong. But if you feel strong as you get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, you can fly and run super fast, incredibly fast in the final 5 miles. There are a few little up and downs in the final 5 miles, but don't worry about them. They're nothing you need to plan around. This section's really fast. So the simple mental strategy that I always give for distance running is the 3 C's. The first portion of the race, you want to stay comfortable. The middle of the race, you want to build your confidence. In the final third of the race, you want to compete. This is how I would break it down for Boston. The first 16 miles of the Boston Marathon, 16 miles, you want to stay comfortable. This is from the very beginning in Hopkinton all the way to that steep downhill that I was talking about, which is when Wellesley crosses into Newton. You'll know it when you see it, but look at a profile map of the course and you'll see it from mile 15 to 16. Stay comfortable through this entire stretch. Once you get to the bottom of that hill at mile 16, the Newton Hills begin. And from 16 to 21, you need to be confident. As you go through the Newton Hills, you need to commit to your mission for the day. You need to be strong, both in body and mind, to get through these hills as quickly as you can. Not be a victim to them, but instead conquer them. And that's, again, by relaxing as you go through them, but being determined that you'll get through. And rolling down the backside of each hill, working with the hills rather than fighting them. This is how you defeat them. And then as you get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, which is mile 21, at this point, you want to feel strong, energetically and physically, and ready to compete. The race starts for you at mile 21. You can run incredibly fast down the back of Heartbreak Hill through Brookline, into Boston, and into Copley Square at the finish line. You need to be ready for that. And if you've stayed comfortable through the first 16 and paced yourself well, didn't go too fast at any point, stayed on top of your fueling and hydration so you have the energy you need, and taken the downhills easily so you don't bang up your legs, then you're going to feel confident going through the Knighton Hills, trusting all the training that you've done to get to this point. You're going to get up and over them as relaxed and smoothly as possible. You're going to be confident, and you're going to know that when you get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, you're ready to fly. So that's the game plan. Comfortable, confident through the Knighton Hills. Top of Heartbreak Hill, that's when you start to compete. If you do this, you're going to run a fantastic Boston Marathon. This is the strategy that I employed when I ran last year and set a new personal best. It worked great, and I know it'll work well for you as well. One thing that really, really helped me in the final stages of this marathon was to think of all those people who had helped me get to this point. The final few miles of Boston were very emotional for me. They were incredibly hard physically. I was starting to cramp up, and I was overwhelmed by emotion, having lived in Boston for my entire adult life, pretty much. Seeing so many of my friends on the course, thinking back to the memories I had of childhood, going to watch the race, and my mom and dad, and how they kind of supported me throughout my life. Thought of all those things, and kind of the emotion built up in me, and I actually cried a little bit as I ran the last couple of miles. It was a mix of happy emotion and just pain from the race, but it literally helped me run faster and run my best. Being able to think of how important this race was to me and how thankful I was for everyone who helped me get there. So know that with any marathon you do, especially a big one like the Boston Marathon that I know you've worked hard for, both physically and mentally, to get to this point, know who you're going to think about or what you're going to think about that's going to carry you through when the going gets tough. Make it bigger than just about yourself, and you'll be able to draw power from that and run your best race. And that's it. You're going to cross the finish line. As you turn onto Boylston Street, onto the final street, the straightaway there, it's unlike anything you've ever done before. The crowd's going to be roaring, cheering. Everyone's going to be sprinting for the finish. It's I think it'd be hard to not get emotional at that stage in the race. It's crazy. It's all, in the best of ways. You're going to love it. And yeah, when you cross the finish line, whether you had an A+ day, hit all your goals, hit some of them, or came up short, just enjoy it, because this is the best marathon in the world, and it's an honor to be there and have the ability to compete. So that's my visualization for what this race is going to be like and what I want you to think about as you run it. If you're running it in a couple of weeks, good luck. And if you're still dreaming about running the Boston Marathon one day, then I hope this gave you a little bit more inspiration to make that dream come true. And that's all I've got for you today. Again, thank you for listening. Today's episode is brought to you by the Knighton Runs training group on Patreon. If you'd like to get training plans and join my community of athletes, go to patreon.com/KnightonRuns. I also have a few spots opening up after the spring season for new athletes. So if you'd like to be coached one-on-one by me and think we might make a good team, just go to KnightonRuns.com/coaching, and you can read about that and apply for coaching on there. And if you haven't gotten a copy of my book yet, Run Faster Marathons, The Proven Path to PR, is available on Amazon and Kindle. So be sure to stay tuned and subscribe to the Knighton Runs podcast if you're not. My intention is to release an episode here every week, so I got a lot more great content coming for you as you train throughout the course of this year. And if you like this show, leaving a review always helps a ton with sharing it to other listeners. Until next time, happy running, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.